As you may have noticed from our first forum, we've started breaking down, if you've seen the upcoming Zoom dates, we've broken down the first forum. So each group or individual is having an opportunity to talk more in depth on their topic, their particular topic. Tuesday night, I beg your pardon, we had Nick Weir from the Open Food Network. That was fantastic. That went really, really well. And tonight we're going to be talking about a new campaign we've got, why we're doing it. Also going to be discussing forming food hubs, give an overview of that, just to give some ideas. And then, because we covered off some of that with Nick at Open Food Network. So if you didn't see that one, it's now uploaded to YouTube. Go and have a look at that one. Nick is fantastic and so helpful, and he'll go above and beyond to help anyone out. It's absolutely brilliant. We've also going to have Danny from the Pharmacy Cooperative. He'll be coming up. We've got the Net Zero team and we've got the council team who are going to be coming along to help share their ideas on how you can get involved. And if none of this makes sense, you might have missed the first public forum. So again, that one's on YouTube. So do go back and watch that one. Lots of important information in there. People are still coming in, so bear with me. It's great. So like I said, everyone's on mute tonight. We will via chat have some question and answer opportunities towards the end. You'll have to excuse myself and Mark Byford. We're, excuse me, both absolutely shattered at the moment. We are running on fumes at the moment. So I'm hopeful this weekend, well, I'll get a chance to rest, but I don't know about Mark. I think he might be still having to push through. Yeah, so do bear with us this evening as we run through what is going on. So what I'm going to do now, I think everyone's here, and do excuse me, I'm not the most technical, as anyone who knows me well will confirm. So I'm going to share my screen. Ooh. And we will get started. I'm just going to bring up so I can let everybody else in as they come through. There we go. Multitasking this evening. Right. Rightio then. Let's stretch this out. So, officially, good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the PFFA second public forum, like I said, and we're going to be running through some elements of what we're going to be up to at PFFA. We're going to talk about the food hubs and an overview of what that looks like and how that might help. And also a couple of other bits that we've got in the pipeline that we're going to share with you. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Right, so move it out of the way. We are going to be launching, as of tonight, officially, our More Farmers, More Food campaign. And we're going to be looking at the different areas that we will be rolling into. What I'll do is just show you kind of a few of the images that we're putting together. That we're going to get out there over the coming days, and we'd love you guys to share it out there. Obviously the overall message speaks for itself. We know that farmers are struggling, but hey, in addition to helping them, let's get some more farmers going. And I know there's plenty of you out there who might be quite interested in doing that, whatever size you might be. But I'm going to bring Mark on in a minute, and he's going to run through some of the elements involved in this campaign in a little bit more detail, just to give you guys an overview of what that looks like. And then we'll come back to let me go back in. So yeah, we'll come back to it. So I'm going to first off say hello to Mark, the bowler hat farmer. Mark, joining us this evening. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just read through each one in case there's anyone here who's visually impaired. And then Mark's going to just talk about it, just a really quick overview of what each element of this campaign is and why it's important that we focus on it. So that got you guys all over my screens. There we go. Increase the number of farmers across the UK, particularly those who wish to adopt small, local, mixed farming approaches to meet the nutritional needs of those in their local community. Over to you, Mark. What do you think of that?
Okay, evening, everybody. Yeah, Katherine, obviously, as well as growing myself, I'm a full-time fruit and veg wholesaler. And one of the things which I've realised that the damaging number of people that are coming out of farming is leaving us with nowhere to buy produce in the future. So hence the reason I got involved in this campaign, because it worries me considerably by 2030 where we're going to be with this, or more concerningly where we're not going to be with the food situation. So I think there's two aspects to this one, Catherine, because people are going to be sitting there and go, well, hang on, how can we get more farmers? Because there isn't any more land being built. But what there is a big number of farmers that want to make different decisions as we move forward. So you might find that if a farmer's got over 100 acres in the future, which most farmers have, I think what you're going to find is a lot of the bigger farmers allowing people to farm, whether that's community farms, whether that's cooperative farms, CSAs, whatever that looks like in the future. I think we're going to see a lot of farmers turning farmland over that might have been a sugar beet field, for instance, or an arable field. I think what you're going to start to see is these bigger fields broken down, a lot more hedgerows going in, and a lot more of a diverse farming coming on there. We've witnessed in the last 50 years, especially, a massive amount of the farmers just turn into a monocrop, where we are in the position that they either grow arable or sugar beet or whatever it might be that year. The natural side to farming disappeared, and we became part of the pharmaceutical industry. You know, it's just chuck more chemicals on the ground and that will do the job. And that needs to be, that's where we need to come away from. So we're going to see, I think we'll see the destruction of the bigger farms. And, you know, you might see one big farm now having 5 or 6 little farms on it, and the bigger farm being a lot smaller.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. The other one is a bit of concern. It's happening now. Farmers are signing up. So we wish to connect with farmers considering taking the government's offer of DEFRA's lump sum exit scheme. I think it had another name like LFE or something, of which already over 2,000 farmers are signed up. We cannot afford to lose any more farmers or farmland to government schemes. We need these to be able to eat. This is a concern, isn't it, genuinely, Mark?
Yeah, interestingly, Catherine, I spoke to a guy the other day via his niece, very concerned. She's very awake. She's very concerned about him taking the payment. He's in his 80s. Right. The children aren't interested in taking over the farm. He sees it as his only option, or did anyway see it as his only option until we've spoken to him and given him the opportunity to look at different things, which he is doing. The problem is there, Catherine, that farmers are being offered. Now, bear in mind that most farmers have scraped a living most of their life on the smaller farms. They've got to the point they want to retire and they've got nothing in the bank. And the government knows that. So what they've done is DEFRA's put in place this policy where the farmers can get out effectively completely of farming. And the land agents are involved in this as well. So their local land agent goes around and says to them, well, you know, what would be a good idea, Bob, is for you to take this money and come out of farming, because that'd be the best thing for you, really. And he obviously gets a cut of the farm being sold, so he's quite happy to push for that. But what the situation is, Catherine, is that these farmers are paid £100,000 to £120,000, depending on the size of the farm. That's as a payment which is made to them when they decide to come out of farming. Obviously, then the farm goes up for sale. However, it doesn't go on the open market for people who want to get into farming to buy. This goes off to the likes of the banks and, Lombard and Vanguard and BlackRock and the people like, Kilgates and people like that who are openly buying up land just to stop people farming. So this land disappears completely out of the system, and there is then no way for people to get that land back into farming because it's going to be held by the government. If you look at the 2030 to 2050 agenda, there is a massive section in there where they talk about the rewilding of publicly owned land. And that's how they're going to increase the publicly owned land right across the world, will be by governments buying up all this land and then putting it down to pastures and lays and, pretty flowers and woodlands. No food.
No. And that's the bottom line, isn't it? That is the bottom line. No, thank you, my love. this way. Number 3, we wish to help grow the number of small producers across the UK, albeit small mixed farms and community farms and cooperatives, but also horticultural schemes and businesses, fruit and cereal growers. Just as an overview, isn't it one of the main key points I think we're right in saying, Mark, is you need a plethora of producers, excuse me, of all sorts of produce at community level across the UK. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Among many of my hats, what I wear, one of them is that I'm a coordinator in East Anglia with the Land Workers Alliance, Katherine. And with that, we've got 3,000 members across the UK that are all small independent growers. So these are all people that are working on maybe a couple of allotments up to, 10, 20 acres, all very small. There's a massive amount of people who want to get in at that level, but cannot at this point ascertain land. So this is where I think we're going to see the big change come. Now, I was at a project the other day, which my cousin has just launched just outside Bury St Edmunds. It's a council-run farm. And, excuse me, I wasn't actually aware that council-run farms still existed, but there's thousands of them still. And sadly, a lot of them are sitting dormant, or the council's built on them or over the years. But there is still a lot out there. And the councils, for some reason, Katherine, and I haven't got to the bottom of this yet, but the council have not only allowed him to take the farm on, they have been assisting him financially. They are working to allow him to have polytunnels and all sorts, which is reassuring from my side. The National Tree Trust and the Woodland Trust, for instance, I've been applying to them for 12 years for trees. We've never been offered fruit trees. This year you can get fruit trees. So whether that's all part of the agenda to make it more that way inclined or not, I don't know. What I do know is it's great to see that happening at a local level. If you take him, for instance, on that 12, I think he's on a 16-acre site, sorry. We planted 265 trees there the other day with volunteers, all fruit trees, including nut trees and, walnut trees, hazelnut trees and different things, which was great. So it gives a complete food forest within the farm. The raised beds, he's using the Charles Downing approach to no dig, which is great to see, because then the earth isn't trashed every time you need to, you don't break down that biodiversity in the soil. So, and there's lots of these starting to spring up, and that's, from my side, obviously what we've been campaigning for months now, since we first, met over the No Farmers, No Food campaign, and started to understand a lot more about this. And now we're starting to see physical things be put into place that we've been talking to people about, we've been helping and assisting people with. So, yeah, and I think that's great that all of that is now kind of coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got the point. We want to have more people growing food, whether that be from community farms and cooperatives, or whether it's horticulture or soft fruit, whatever it might be. What we also would like to do, and I'm just going to move this out the way because my screen's playing up, bear with me. So this campaign will support the growth of local processors and retailers in the food production movement. We wish to grow more local dairy processors for cheese, milk, butter, yogurt, and other food items. We would like to see expansion in the use of wool, lanolin, manure, and other byproducts to reduce waste and increase natural products within local manufacturing. We will support the opening of local abattoirs, feed mixers, and butcheries, either mobile or static, to reduce costs for farmers and support local production. So it's not just what we grow, is it? It's what goes on from there. And this is the problem with the supermarket situation at the moment. The farmers, it goes out, the produce goes off the farm, and then who knows what on earth happens to it. At some point, we'll end up back in the supermarket on the shelves in some form or another. But actually, if we want to support farmers dealing directly, not only do we need to understand what they're up against and start increasing production to support them, particularly through a transitional period, we need to look at local processing. Have you got any thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, again, Katherine, whether it's just that because we've been talking about this, things that were going on are coming to the forefront or not, I don't know. But I've had people contact me over the past few weeks since we've been putting out a lot of videos that are looking to get into the food system. From a butcher who's now looking to extend to putting an abattoir on the site, to a miller who's got a mill what they're now putting back into use. So I think we're going to, and I think increasingly one of the things which I think from my side as an ambassador of the PFFA, one of the things I'd like to see is, and I don't know if we have the ability yet, Katherine, to be on the site for people to be able to make donations, but one of the things which I've certainly been asked for is how can we get assistance for this? And I think if we could find a solution to helping these people get the funds to launch these projects properly, then we're going to see this fly, because there's a lot of people out there now. You know, I think if we'd have spoken about this even as late as a year ago, then people would have just said, well, you know, whatever. People are waking up in droves, and this is the big thing that's come into play really in my life. Is, I'll give you an example. I put a post up the other day on Facebook, and it was a simple post. It wasn't complicated. It was purely a Union Jack that said "Back British Farming," okay, and it got 18,000 likes, 450,000 views. I think it was up at 900 comments and about 2,000 shares. Now, a year ago, it wouldn't have got, you know, a few hundred people view it. I think now what we've done with all of the campaigns we've together been working on, whether that was the No Farmers, No Food now through to the More Farmers, More Food campaign, it's bringing it to people's attention. And where people were not aware of what was going on between the consumer and the farmer, being this thing in the middle called the supermarket and the supply chain, and all what's broken about it, since we've been highlighting that and bringing that to the forefront, what's happened is people are going away, they're researching, they're doing their own due diligence on this, and they're coming back to the same conclusion that we have, that things need to change. And that's the biggest thing what's going to drive all this, from the farmer to the consumer. The bit what needs to be in the middle of my belief, wholeheartedly and passionately, like Nick and yourself, is these food hubs. And that's the key to all of this as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have a look at those in a minute. You're absolutely right, my friend. The final point, excuse me, guys, got a bit of a funny throat this evening. Bear with me. Try and multitask here. So we will target national control structures such as DEFRA and the Environment Agency to ensure we reduce legislative controls that limit local growth and farmers' ability to diversify to a greater mixed farming approach. We need more farmers able to function fully and serve their community, and we need relaxed rules to ensure local organisations can move swiftly and effectively to help support more food. So we know that all the regulators in the UK really at the moment, and certainly in the last few years, have been making life tough for everybody. And it would appear to me that DEFRA and EA are not doing really anything to support farmers growing more. Quite the opposite. In fact, they're causing issues with farmers growing food. And what we want is more farmers and more food. I mean, it is that simple. So I know that you've got concerns about those control mechanisms, but I just want everyone to know out there that it is part of our remit with this. We've got a couple of incredible people who've joined the team with a strong lawful background, who are going to look at this and see how we can support farmers and tackle the legislative issues. Do you want to just give a very brief overview, Mark, of a couple of the ways that these bits of legislation or certainly the schemes, if you like, are impacting farmers currently?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, Katherine, in all of this is just this bureaucracy involved in the legislation from both DEFRA and the Environment Agency. I mean, the TB testing is one of the things which has chucked up some massive hurdles for people this year. I'm not a fan of DEFRA or the Environment Agency the best of times because of the bureaucracy, but what I've seen is I can't help but think we are in the position where these bureaucrats have just gone crazy. and they're employing people to keep the unemployment line down. And as a result of that, what's happening is that they're then just constantly coming up with stupid damn policies to just keep themselves entertained and employed. I'm sure of it. You know, if you look at the TB test as a fine example, I was running a care farm a few years ago, and we had one cow. There wasn't another cow herd within 16 miles of me that we could find any record, any record of, nor could DEFRA. Yeah, they came out to test my herd, one cow. They charged me £800 for the convenience to test my one cow. And when I saw what they did to test it, it's the most flawed system that could ever exist. It's a bit like COVID testing. It's just a bloody useless system which was never designed for what it's been used for. You've got the Environment Agency. Again, I was talking to a farmer the other day. Here's a classic example. The middle of a village where always floods repeatedly year on year on year, and the Environment Agency don't do anything about getting the ditches and the rivers cleared out. So the parish council had a word with this local farmer. The farmer did the job, got in there with a digger, cleared it all out, and got a £2,000 fine from the Environment Agency for stopping the village flooding. And this is what we're up against. There has to be a massive, massive step back on this legislation nonsense which is going on at present with, and not just DEFRA and the Environment Agency, all government departments are just, they've got so heavy now because they just keep employing people to, just to keep people employed, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So all of these issues are either things we're going to be tackling or things we're going to be encouraging and supporting. Now, as we go on through the campaigns, we're starting with, more farmers, more food. We need to get that message out there. We need to get the public involved. We need you guys who have got an interest or fancy doing this or starting a small farm or, a small holding, whatever it might be. Maybe you're more leaning in towards the horticultural side. It's really important that you guys engage and spread the word. And wherever you go, use the hashtag more farmers, more food. We want to actually get to the farmers as well, so they understand that we, the people, want them there and we want more. And we're here to support for food sovereignty across the UK. So as the weeks roll on, what we're going to do is also do a little bit of an onus on focus on particular areas. So, for example, more farmers, more milk. And what we'll be doing is having a week or two just where we're focusing purely on that, looking at the issues within the dairy industry now, what the problems are, what they're up against. The amount of dairy farmers we've lost in the last 10 years is almost catastrophic. And I'm not even exaggerating when I use that term. It's almost catastrophic. But then what we'll be doing is we'll be looking at what that dairy process is, and then speaking to farmers who are selling directly from the gate in terms of raw milk and other dairy products that they're selling directly from the gate or from the farm shop, wherever it might be, and how that looks different, what it looks like financially, what it looks like for the animals involved. And then people can make a really strong decision on what it is that they feel is the right way.
Think you the shit, bitch? You're not even the fuck. I be going hard. I'm breaking their hearts.
There we go. God bless. Off you trot. So also the next one, just to give you again a little bit of a heads up here, don't go spreading the word too heavily. More farmers, more bread, for example. And we were looking at what goes into this. What do these farmers come up against in terms of wheat? What are the benefits? What are the negatives? What does that look like in reality? And how do we make crop growing or arable farming something that can be more beneficial for the soil in the long run, can be more beneficial for the farmer, can be more beneficial for the human that's consuming it, and what that looks like. So we'll be drilling down in different areas because there's a lot of people out there who don't actually necessarily understand these processes or understand farming particularly well because they've never necessarily been involved with it. So we want to take this opportunity to educate, but also look at how you, the public, how we, the people, can get involved at each level to help get the infrastructure in place to ensure that farmers can start then selling their product directly. So we'll be kind of breaking it down a bit, but we really want you guys to share the More Farmers, More Food campaign, if you'd be so kind. So what we'll do next is just move on So there we've overlooked why more farms. So, you know, how can community projects help? Well, we're hoping that picture's starting to become clearer now, and what you guys can do to get involved and how we can help grow the farming community overall. It is a challenge because of things like DEFRA and what we said earlier about the lump sum situation. It is a challenge because we're going to have to go up against that. But what we need to do is all start letting people know on our Facebook or our Twitter, X, whatever it might be. When these things come up, have a comment, have a voice, have a say, respond to DEFRA or respond to those involved that, hang on, we're not overly happy with this, guys, and let them know about it. The implications for food sovereignty. Now, if we're going to have food shortages this year, which it looks like in terms of English or British production might well be the case, then what they're planning on doing, I would imagine, is we're relying more on exports. However, if you saw the news this morning, and I'm not remotely shocked by this, they're going to use some sort of Brexit reason as having caused enough issues that imported food prices are going to go up substantially this year. So whatever way you look at it, there's going to be a shortage of food for someone. And that is why we have to get production pouring into communities as quickly as we possibly can, which is, again, the grow your own community growing groups where you come together, whether that be in an allotment type space, whether it be a bunch of people with their back gardens, just turning them over for food production and working together, whether that be that you get some land off your local farmer and get moving, even if you're getting carrots in the ground this year, onions, potatoes, you know, even if it's just the basics, get moving with it as soon as possible. And we know why the scheme is dangerous. We know that we do not need farmers selling the land they've got. We need access to that land. We need them to be farming that land. There is no other way of looking at it. It's absolutely essential we do this. If you are connected to a farmer, get talking with him, get to know him. If you find out he's thinking of going along this line, please try and talk to them about it. Worst comes to worst and you're not able to do that sufficiently, reach out to us. One of us will get on the phone and have a chat with them. Every single farm and farmer counts. And plus they take with them a wealth of experience and knowledge. And you know, it's so key that we hang on to so many of those, particularly those farmers that have been at this for donkey's years, and they remember a lot about how mixed traditional farming used to be done. I'm going to pass over to Mark. I just want to, for those that aren't sure, I just want to, Mark, to give a little bit of an overview as to what the horticultural industry looks like and the soft fruit industry, and how, you know, and also a little bit about how seasonal growth and consumption would probably be a good way for us to start looking at things. Mark, do you want to have a look at that, my friend?
Sure. So, Katherine, from my side, when I qualified at uni, the difference between agriculture and horticulture was really not a great deal. No one really understood then what horticulture was. There was, you know, we were coming then into the 90s. Big farms were pulling out hedgerows and really getting into commercial growing. The only horticultural people you really saw then were people like nurseries, for instance, where they would have grown salad throughout the summer. What I think has happened now is the diversity that I see through the Land Workers Alliance is hundreds upon hundreds of these little horticultural places popping up. So horticulturally, from my side, I would say is a very small farm where most of the work is done by hand, and they're looking to crop a large amount of produce off a very small area. So if, for instance, you take a traditional agricultural land and you say, well, we're going to grow wheat on this land and it will crop out at 5 to 8 tonne an acre, then you know what you're going to get off that land, 5 to 8 tonne of physical food, potential food, right? The wheat disappears off into the whiskey industry, the barley disappears off into the beer industry, and probably about sort of, I don't know what the figures are, but probably 10 to 20% of the arable land, you know, physically ends up growing into bread and things like that. You don't tend to find too many people making vodka out of potatoes these days. So when you grow vegetables, and you grow, especially on a small area where the soil is rich from good quality compost and fertilizer. And that's a key to all of this. This is where the mixed farm side comes back in, Katherine, because if you've got a mixed farm and you have farmers that are doing a 4-year rotation, which is what an ideal scenario is. So every 4th year, the animals hit that soil. The year before that, before the animals get there, you're planting grass and lays. That puts the nitrogen back in, the natural nitrogen. The animals then come on and graze that and put natural fertilizer onto the soil. You then plough it up, and for 2 years, you've got the most amazing soil there. And then as it starts to deplete, you put the grass back down, you put the animals back on, or grass or a cover crop, and that puts the nitrogen back in the ground, natural nitrogen, not none of this nasty chemical stuff from the petro industry. And what you're ending up with then is real good quality soil, which grows an abundance of food. And that's what we need to see. What we want to see is we want people growing vegetables and cropping 20 tonne an acre, you know, not 4 or 5 tonne to 8 tonne an acre. The difference is astronomical. And this is where we need to get people to understand we can have a lot less farms than we've got. Okay. That's one part of this. We can. But what is key to that success is the fact that we need the farms what are left to go over to mixed farming and the diversity of crops on a farm. So they might grow 20 crops and have, 5 different types of animals rather than just cereal, sugar beet, potatoes, whatever it might be. And that diversity is what will drive the quality of food, the range of food in the local community by local people. And that's where all of this fits together. And the whole ecosystem around the farm, whether that's the community, whether that's the insects, whether that's the birds, naturally, if you take Katherine, when I was a kid, we used to catch the frogs and put them in the greenhouse because they then ate all the green fly. And they trialled this in, I'll give you an example of this, of governmental agencies not understanding how the food system works. In China, some years ago, they decided that sparrows were stealing 1% of the grain what the country grew. So they paid all the kids like a penny a piece to go around and kill all the sparrows. The second year they had a famine because there was no sparrows left to pick all the insects off, and the insects ate all the crops. We've seen this in history, and it repeats and repeats and repeats. So what we need to do is to get the farmers now to understand, because a lot of the older generation farmers could still farm in a more traditional manner. They still have the knowledge, the expertise, but we're on a very tight window because most of those farmers now are all but falling off the other end of the system and taking these payments to get out, and then not allowed to give consultancy to other farmers who are getting into it. And, it's a whole shit show, really. So what we've got to have from my side is on the horticultural side, lots of people being involved in helping these farmers, these horticulturalists, grow food. So this is where, when I had a 12-acre site, Katherine, we had anything up to 50 volunteers that came in over the course of a week. From kids from school came in and helped, from pensioners to unemployed people who had mental health issues, whatever that was. They were there to assist the farming, feeding the animals, mucking out. The muck was put onto the veg beds. The veg beds grew great crops. And this is what we need more of.
Yeah. And it's worth us pointing out, Mark's quite right when he said we probably could get by with less farmers if everyone took a mixed farming approach. But what I think we both want everyone to understand tonight is what we're going to have to accept is there's going to need to be a transition. Farmers cannot logistically, financially, physically, energetically suddenly go from a kind of monocrop, monoproduct culture into the next season being a mixed farming approach. It doesn't, reality bites, it doesn't work that way. We need more farms and more food whilst we have this transition. It'd be great if it was ongoing, of course it would. But even if you're somebody who just wants to do this for a handful of years, go for it, absolutely go for it. Because our current farmers, a lot of them aren't even aware of the bigger issues, or certainly some of the bigger issues that they face. So right now, expecting them to just start, you know, transitioning across to mixed farming. That isn't going to happen overnight. That is the reality. But the other side of the reality is we don't have enough food that we're growing or rearing in this country for us to be food sovereign. And this is where the seasonality thing comes in. If everyone can lead into more of a seasonal approach to their diet, we stand a better chance. But we need as many people out there growing food and rearing food as is physically and financially possible, because we're not exaggerating when we say things could get a bit hairy. And we want to sidestep that landmine. We want people to be able to access healthy food. Besides which, we want the farmers to have an easier time of it. And if the community support them, get behind them in whatever form that is, or out there growing food, you're going to be helping towards a much, much bigger issue and kind of mitigating the impacts of that. So that's all involved in the whole ethos behind more farmers, more food. What we're going to look at now is an essential key element to the solution, and the solution for these issues that we're seeing happening. So food hubs. What I want to go through is kind of what a food hub is and how it could work for you. So a food hub fundamentally is whatever you and your community want it to be. Now, I was speaking to a couple of ladies today. One of them has got a barn. She had a barn, and she's just very slowly, when I say very slowly, she's done it over the last year or so, has set up a food hub in her local area where they source from local producers, from any, and it's not just food, actually, there's some other local sort of household items that they stock as well. And what they do is they do a big delivery and collection once a month. But what they're then doing is they're now going to be starting to move out of that area and find a property so they can start doing more frequent collections with obviously fresh produce each week. So they're upping it bit by bit. They've set themselves up as a private members association. And we're going to be inviting them on soon, especially with the lady who helped them put it together, and how it works and how they stay outside of the banking system, how they make this happen without any regulatory bodies getting involved or making things difficult for them. Now, there's other types of hubs where people will have a physical building potentially, and they could have daily situations going on where maybe the farmers or producers drop off, or maybe volunteers collect produce. You can use things like the Open Food Network to set up your ordering system. It's literally all on there. You don't have to invest lots of money in new software. And they can take care of the help you take care of the back office stuff as well. That could be a much bigger outfit. You know, you could have produce that's collected, make up food boxes to order, for example, and have those collected and make a little markup. So whilst you're maybe a not-for-profit, you can still pay your overheads and maybe pay somebody to oversee on the daily. You can go to a number of extremes. I mean, some will be using it as a place to hold workshops so people can learn maybe how to cook. Maybe a butcher comes in so people can start understanding the meat a little better, or how to store it, or how to use it effectively. Some will be using it potentially to gather food for food banks in their local area. Some people have discussed wanting to do that, or setting up a food bank of their own there a couple of times a week. There are so many different ways we can look at this. So I put some of the ideas up there that of how people could set up what that food bank could be for. And you don't have to frighten yourself with it being some big, massive, huge, organized affair. You could simply get together with some like-minded people, tap up your local farmer or your local salad grower or your local raw milk provider and say, hey, we've got 30 people in our village who would love to work directly with you. Can I coordinate this? So it makes it easier for the producer. They just give you one person, for example, the produce, and then you can go and say, right, guys, on my little WhatsApp group, for example, food's here, come and grab it today. And they come up and buy the food. It could literally be that simple to get started. It doesn't need to be complex, because I don't want anyone feeling overwhelmed by this as some huge affair. If you're up for the huge affair and you've got the time and the energy and the inclination, then please do. The more the merrier. Also, it could be a way for farmers and processors. You could start it off at a village hall. That could be the start of your hub group, and they come together and they talk about what they do or the problems they're facing, and you can start brainstorming as a community. You can start coming together to find the solutions that will work. It could be somebody who wants to set up a processing business and they want to come and pitch the idea to other people in your community and say, hey, who wants to help me? Hey, we need this small abattoir open. Who wants to get involved? So a food hub can look a number of different ways. There is no one way. Very much like at PHA, we're not going to tell you what you should do or dictate that. It's for you to take the ideas and the inspiration and work it in a way that works for you. One of the things this woman said earlier, which was just wonderful, was she said it's just how people have come together. She said it's just such a huge bonus. She said when we have collection day, we put the kettle on, we get the biscuits out, people come down, grab a seat, we sit around, we have a natter, find out how everyone else is doing in the local community. And because we're like-minded people, there's lots for us to talk about, whereby we might not be able to talk about that necessarily with our next door neighbours at the moment. What it also does as well is as things move on, if things get trickier and more difficult, you've naturally got a support network. That network is being built already without you having to go out your way to build it. It's there. So all of these things are increasingly more important as time goes on. And as we know, things could get a little more tricky and a little bit more rocky as we go through the year. Oh, I nearly gave you a heads up then, a bit early. So what I'd like you guys to do is really think about that. What could you do? Who do you know in your local community that might be up for this? You could have your food hub is where everybody brings their gluts of food and you say, right, Wednesday's glut day, everyone bring in your excess produce, and then we can either sell it for you or we can donate it to the food bank, or it's an open day, back doors open for those in the community who are maybe struggling a little bit more financially and want to be able to feed their kids some fresh produce, but it's just not something that's necessarily easy to do on the daily. So lots and lots for you guys to consider there. Like I said earlier, if you haven't seen the Zoom we did on Tuesday, just gone with Open Food Network with Nick Weir, it's now up on our YouTube channel. Do go and have a look. He goes into things from a different angle around food hubs, but it's equally as important. But it shows how OFN can actually help you as well. And Nick's the sort of guy who will literally get on the phone with you and talk you through it. He is just incredible. We're very, very blessed to have a number of fantastic partners, genuinely fantastic partners. So we need more food hubs. If you can't get out and build a farm, if you can't go out there and grow your own food for whatever reason, maybe you have no growing space. I'm going to talk about that briefly in a minute. Then there's other things you can do to help. And that might be that this food hub, you set up a buying group in the local community, and that's how it works. There are so many different options. Don't be narrowed in terms of thinking that it's just one particular model. You create what you need in your community. Now, one thing I do want to put out there to you guys, and I'd please encourage you to share this with your friends and family. Virtually everyone in the country can grow potatoes. Virtually everyone in some form or another. You do not need an expansive amount of land. Now, I've got a tiny amount of growing space. So all mine are going to be going in bags for life. I've done it before for several years. Put a few holes in the bottom of the bags of life, put in a bit of soil, put your spud in, a little bit of soil. And as it grows, you'll see the leaves coming up. Put another little layer of soil on. Leaves come up, another little layer of soil, and you'll get to the top, and eventually you'll have lots of big foliage sticking out the top, and in there you're going to find a load of potatoes. If we needed to, and let's hope it doesn't go this far, and I'm not putting fear out there, but in terms of you can survive on spuds. Not the healthiest just to survive on spuds, let's be true, but if push came to shove, you could survive on spuds. Now, if there's a massive issue in terms of the logistics of delivery of food, so I'm not saying necessarily a food shortage, but there's a logistical issue in terms of delivery of food into, say, local supermarkets, local suppliers, merchants, whoever it might be. If everyone in the community is growing spuds, everyone's going to have something to eat, and they're not difficult to grow. So even if you've got a balcony, you can stick a few bags out there and grow a few spuds. And each bag, I mean, I was getting about 30, 40 spuds out of each bag. So it's okay. It's not massive, but it's something. So we're doing a big drive on the moment on how do you grow yours. Again, you'll see part of that coming up on our social media now. So please do share it and encourage others to get involved and grow potatoes, because they're honestly, they're so easy, aren't they, Mark? There's nothing difficult. I can grow spuds.
They are. Katherine, what I would say, just on a couple of points which you've made there, a year ago, we were growing just over 60% of the food which the UK consumed. 40% was being imported in. That now has changed. We're now at 49% production and 51% being imported. So that's gone up, by 11% in a year. What I would say is scary about that is, like you just said yourself there, we don't need a food shortage. We just need an issue where the lorries can't run, for instance. Let's say a diesel shortage, or anything like that could cause that. We've got 50% of the food which is consumed in the country not there overnight. That means people are going to eat 50% less, no matter how you look at it. I don't want to put myself or my family in that position. I will openly say I've been stockpiling food for years, well before the pandemic.
Yeah, same.
And I think the reality is, if anyone's watching this, if they haven't already started stocking up, they should. And that's not about fear mongering. That's about sensibility and beating food inflation as well. Because if there is a shortage, there's going to be a massive shortage. It's not going to be a little one. If things continue as they are, by the end of this year, there's going to be food shortages anyway. If things don't change, from our side, on the farming community, we have got the winter barley across the winter wheat across East Anglia, and the winter barley, which was drilled, has completely rotted off in the grounds. A big percentage of that's all been lost. We now need to re-drill with spring barley. Can't get it in the ground because the ground's too wet. Every time we think we'll just get a tractor on there, it's up to its neck in water again, or mud. So we're going to see a lot of food shortages this year just because of the weather. Then put on top of that what's happening with DEFRA and people coming out of farming. Then take the 2030 agenda, and we know the reduction on imported produce is going to come. We know that's going to happen. Add all these things together, and it starts to look rather dangerous if you're not forward thinking and forward planning. One of the other things you've covered there, Katherine, these food hubs we've set up on the farm where I farm. We've set up a small shop this week. It's got an honesty box in it. It's a small shop. It's only 15 foot by 7 foot. I've been out today going around local farms picking produce up to sell in the shop. So it's a cross between a food hub in principle and a farm shop. It's just a few of us what have got together to make this happen. Really simple. No huge investments. If someone had a garage, they could almost do this. But one of the things I was going to say, Katherine, and I think we need as a nation to give consideration to this. I had a time in my life when I was reliant on a food bank. Not something I'm proud of. It happened because of changes in my life and circumstances. And whilst I was very grateful, whilst having 2 kids at home to feed, for the food we got given, and don't want to sound ungrateful for that at all, what I would like to see is that some of these community farms and CSAs and people who end up with excess food could donate this to the food banks, so that real food could go in the food bags, as well as tins of beans, tins of soup, pasta and things like that. It'd be lovely to see some real food in these food banks as well.
If your local food bank doesn't take fresh produce, set up your own initiative. Do it yourself. Set it up yourself and say, right, guys, if you're in need, come in Wednesday afternoon from 2, and we're going to have some fresh produce. And you just work around the system.
I mean, I know, Katherine, where I live, there's several of the churches set up a thing called produce in the porch.
Right.
So
nice.
they encourage the local allotment growers and farmers that if they've got anything extra to just take it and leave it in the porch, and the local community goes and helps themselves to it. And it was initially set up for people on benefits and things, but I think just kind of everybody uses it now. But so what? What difference does that really make? I mean, I had a time where a friend and I for 8 years ran a charity, and one of the biggest things was as a result of me receiving a food parcel on Christmas Eve of all days from a friend. We went on to do collecting food parcels and handing them out to the public. And we got up to the point of handing out thousands on a yearly basis. And that really showed to me just how many people were hard up enough at that point and desperate. And what I would say, Katherine, is that's at a time, we did that 10 years ago. that was at a time when the country was affluent and there was plenty of food about. There was plenty of people that could step in and could donate food. What happens if the challenge comes next time round and you're sitting there with the kids and you're hungry and there isn't anybody to step in because nobody can spare food? And that's the bit what people need to understand. You know, just having something grown in the garden and something tucked away in the back of the cupboard to make sure that they are catered for, you know, if there is a run on the shops, Catherine, we all saw this and we can laugh about it with the toilet rolls during the pandemic. But when you actually look at that, if that was potatoes, for instance, you know, people would kill to feed their kids. I'm sure of that. So that you need to be avoiding putting yourself in that situation of going to the supermarket when that problem arrives. So I think it's really important that people understand they do need a security blanket effectively at home, which is some produce grown in the garden, or, you know, or in tubs, in bags, whatever that might be. And also the other side, that they need some packets and tins put away so that they don't have to go and face the mob should there be one.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always done it as well because I'm a single parent, so I've always had a stockpile, because you never know what will happen in the next month. You know, if I'd have lost a job and I hadn't been able to get one, and I had a month's worth of food, hey, pressure's off. You know, particularly when they were really little, pressure's off a little bit. So there's a lot of reasons for it being a sensible option anyway, Mark, to you know, think about doing it, let alone what might well be incoming by the looks of it. So anyway, so that's food hubs. So again, not telling you what it should look like, giving you lots of ideas. What we will ask you to do is do a something and see what works for you. It even could be that, say, pharmacy cooperative, maybe they want more distribution support in your area if they deliver to your area. It could be if you've got a car and you're just happy to pot around once a week and deliver some boxes. It could be as simple as that, but get involved, do a something. Everyone can get involved in some way. Talking of which, we are going to be now asking for volunteers to step forward as PHA regional ambassadors. We need more people getting involved at a local level. Oh, again.
Did you say PFFA, Karen? Catherine?
Did I say PHA, did I?
You did.
Yeah, sorry guys, old habits. So PFFA regional ambassador, and what we want to do is work towards and fully support the growth of local food production and processes, and understand the need for us all to become involved in growing greater food sovereignty for the UK. So what is a PFFA regional ambassador? Well, what we're doing, I'm just going to move you out the way a moment, is we are seeking volunteer ambassadors who can help support and guide across towns and districts with the following aims: connect various food growth and production groups and organisations, connect with local farmers to establish what challenges they currently face and start building some strong relationships, connect farmers to each other, to PFFA and to other support groups, help communities establish food hubs, increase farmers markets, connect with PFFA partners, and we'd love your help within the community and feed back to PFFA so we can help provide solutions where possible. So we would suggest that if you're interested in doing this, you'd be quite happy to work independently. We're obviously quite a small team here at, like, if you like, the core area. So if you could work independently, that would be great. Got to be able to communicate effectively, because you could be speaking to a farmer one day, producer another, a consumer another, a volunteer another. You know, being able to communicate effectively is helpful. Be able to show compassion as well as be able to think logically. I think both of those are pretty important. You've got to be passionate about helping others, because this is where it comes from. It comes from the heart. You know, that is the messaging we want to put out there. You're also genuinely keen to help move towards food sovereignty. And if you had a bit of a basic understanding about food production, that would be helpful, although not essential, because when you're dealing with producers and farmers, they might speak a slightly different lingo. If you're not intimidated by that or worried about that, or you're a keen communicator anyway, it won't be an issue for you. Some people might find it a bit tricky to get the hang of the lingo, although in the fullness of time, you know, you will learn. So what we'd like to do is appoint a couple of ambassadors for each village, several for each town, and many across all cities. It's going to take a people's army to win this war on food. And we would love you to reach out should you be interested in becoming a PFFA ambassador. What we're going to do is hold a closed meeting in a few weeks' time for people who are keen to become an ambassador. So you'd receive a personal invitation to that meeting if you could express your interest at the following email address: info@the-pffa.org. I'll say that again, info@the-pffa.org. We are a relatively small group of people. We are all throwing ourselves at this in no uncertain terms, very, very much so. That's why we don't necessarily sleep a huge amount sometimes. But it's going to take all of us. Now, we don't have the reach to get to every farm, every farmer, every producer, every butcher, every horticulturalist. We do not have that reach, but we need ambassadors to represent PFFA and the people within their community, most importantly, to go out and help make this happen. It is a case of all hands on deck. Everyone has a role to play. Like I said, it could be the hubs. You could be suitable for, happy to be an ambassador. You could be somebody who actually just wants to go and set up a community farm. You might just want to grow some food in your back garden. Everyone can get involved, and we want to build a model whereby there is space for everybody to proactively help deal with the issues in hand and move towards food sovereignty. So please do email us with your contact details, maybe a little overview of who you are or what you enjoy. And once we've got together a date, we will reach out and connect with you and send you a personal invitation to join us on a closed meeting so we can go through things in a little bit more details and answer very specific questions about it. So please do, reach out. Just going to give an overview quickly. I know we've gone on a bit, so we'll move to Q&A very briefly. We have a quick 20-minute Q&A if there are questions that anyone wants answered. Potentially, we're looking, and it all comes down to time, energy, and whether we've got the money. We would love to do a roadshow, particularly Mark and I, although I'm sure there'll be ambassadors or others who'd like to get involved, or other like PFFA ambassadors. We are thinking of doing a roadshow across the UK. We want to connect with farmers and producers. These guys are quite tricky to get hold of. They work incredibly hard. A lot of them aren't on social media. That's why we need you guys as well as ambassadors, or just to reach out to your local farmer. If they've got questions, if they want to understand more of the messaging we're delivering, please do ask them to connect with PFFA, and one of us will get in touch with them directly. We're incredibly busy, but we'll always try and make the time to reach out and talk directly if we can. But it would be a lot easier on them if we could just turn up in their local town, rock up and tell them all about what we're doing, why we think they need to transition to mixed farming, what the realities are that they're up against, be compassionate towards the fact so they understand there's people who do get it, they do understand what you guys are up against, and take it from there. So just going to put that on the radar. We don't know more than that at this moment, but we're very, very serious about finding these solutions. And one of the biggest issues is being able to connect with farmers. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and move across to the chat. Bear with me one moment. If you've got a question, please do pop it in the chat. We'll be more than happy to have a look at them. Let me just go through quickly now and see what we've got going on. So electroculture, we're going to be having a guy come in to do a Zoom on that in hopefully May, to talk about electroculture gardening and how it works, what they do, what's the benefits and so forth. So those that haven't come across it before, it's really fascinating, really, really interesting. I know a few people who do it. I actually went out to Charles Dowding's place not long, 3-4 weeks ago. I was over at Homemakers, and he's got some systems set up which he's very positive about. So there's lots more to learn.
Yeah.
Right, Mark, here's one for you. Where is the best place to buy potato seedlings if you're in a city?
Crikey.
I order mine online, to be honest.
I was going to say, I mean, if you go to, I'll be honest, I was trying to think, then Homebase do a cracking range of seed potatoes. There's tends to be one of those in most towns, I think. I genuinely end up with all their waste seed potatoes, what they get left over at the end of the year. They give them to us for the community projects and things. And we had a cracking attempt last year. Ray and I have, I say Ray and I, Ray had a cracking attempt at growing some potatoes over on the farm. He used these seed potatoes, what we were given, and they worked really well. So I would say someone like Homebase. What I would say the problem with Homebase probably is that, no disrespect to them, but they're a lot of genetically modified brands and things. I think if we can add a link, perhaps before the video goes live on YouTube, then I can send some seed company details where people can order heritage seeds from, Katherine.
Yeah. No,
because
absolutely.
obviously heritage seeds are the important ones because they've not been messed about with, they've not been played with, and they're the old varieties, so they're a lot more resistant to the weather and what's going on around the world, blights and things, yes, and diseases generally. So we can put links in for this. Yeah.
And something that I do, guys, each year, just mainly because I'm pretty useless, is I never know if it comes from old, actually, that I never knew if I was going to have enough money to buy seeds the next year. So what I got into the habit of doing is around November time is just buying a couple of normal bags of spuds and just stick them at the back of the larder and leave them there, and they start sprouting. And so when it comes around to now, because I never have ordered my seed potatoes on time, I pull out the ones for my first round out the back of my cupboard and set them into the bags for life and get them growing. And okay, it might not be the most perfect way to do it, but you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You need to move quickly. You haven't ordered on time. There's always a way to figure it out. There's always a way. You've got to find it. I've got a question here on how many seed potatoes do I put in a bag for life? So in all honesty, I'll probably stick 4 in, 5 in each bag for life, and that'll give me loads of spuds. They'll just, loads of. Why are you laughing at me, Mr. Bowler Hat Farmer?
There's nothing like overkill.
Well, me, I should slam. Oh, that's because actually, in fairness, I didn't have enough bags last year, so I shoved them all into what I had. But we still had tons of spuds. But yeah, you could stick 2 or 3 in a bag, and that would be more than adequate. That would be absolutely fine. Right, next one. Doesn't seem to be a lot of Scottish farmers. Is that Scottish farmers that are awake? I see there's a bit of a run on a conversation there. I mean, they are out there. If you go and have a look on the Open Food Network, I know that I've seen quite a few on there. So do go and have a look. And these are guys that obviously are happy to sell direct or work with a local food hub. That's something else to note. Another reason to set up a food hub is the farmers just would have spoken to Open Food Network, and they'd just much rather, some of them, go through a food hub, because the hub will collect from them. It saves them time, saves them energy, because they're so busy, and the volunteers come and collect it and they take that food off. So there's, like I say, there's a number of different ways, but the Open Food Network, it's well worth checking out. And they've got advice in there on how to use that, but also things above and beyond that, and working at community level, looking at opening up a hub. There's lots and lots of information. Let's have a look.
Katherine, one thing I would just say on that, I know different people have looked on the Open Food Network, said there's nothing in their area. And this is the whole reason we need these ambassadors, and this is the whole reason we need more farmers on board. You find some areas where there's a lot of small growers, other areas there isn't. East Anglia, there isn't particularly lots of growers, but that's changing. And I think what you will see, I think you'll probably see the number double, triple, quadruple very quickly on the OFN, personally.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And it's brilliant. And they're just genuinely lovely people as well. And what's interesting is Open Food Network are looking at ways of supporting pharmacy cooperative and vice versa. And it's a beautiful moment, actually, because we're seeing a lot of groups that traditionally would maybe have been seen as, I don't know, competitors or people who, just because you're in different areas, or it be an issue. No. This is a change of times now. We're not playing those games anymore. Ego isn't coming to play. Huge profits aren't coming into play. This is about getting people together to serve the community. I wake up and how do I serve my world? How do I serve the world? What do I do? We've got to start thinking in this way. And this is what's lovely about these guys. They're going to work together and figure it out together as to how they can support each other. And I want to see that ideally happening across the UK if possible. So someone said something about my little bags and spuds. I'm inspiring people here. I know it. I just know it. I think they were saying about them. So it's not plastic bags per se, not like your carrier bags that you're thinking of. You know, the ones that they've got under there that are more not canvas, but I suppose they are plastic in a way. I suppose they are plastic, but they're not what you think of your plastic carrier bags. These are the bags for life that should have some sort of material, handles and so forth. And I literally get them for about 30p, and I plug some holes in the bottom. And if that's all I can do, because I've just got a bit of driveway and I can grow, you know, 2-3 months worth of spuds in those, absolutely fantastic. I'm going to do it. Right, let me go down. Not sure about the email. So you've got some convos going on there. I'm going to get rid of that one. There we go. Any more questions you want to pop in the chat? Anyone more you might have directly from Mark? Now's the time to go at his knowledge, because you're not often going to be able to pin this man down. Are there any plans? Oh gosh, now they're all coming quick and fast. It's always the way it goes, isn't it? Might be waiting for a bus. So we have got some posters coming out for More Farmers, More Food over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We will put them all over our social media when they're available. We'll do some in mono, some in color, because it can get, you know, a little bit expensive. I know that Mark, when it was No Farmers, No Food, went out, got a load of posters done, plastered them up everywhere. We'd love to see the same for More Farmers, More Food. And
we will.
just, yeah, people ask you, say, well, you can be a farmer, they can be a farmer. Let's be farmers together. You know, let's figure this out together to make sure that everyone in our community gets fed. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line here. But the bigger picture is we also need to help farmers transition and move across that mixed farming approach. Are there any plans for the Open Food Network and Produce and Provide teaming up? No Farmers, No Food are promoting Produce and Provide. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to ask Nick. I haven't asked the question. I reached out to Produce and Provide, and they haven't yet come back to us, and that was a while ago. More than happy to connect them up. More than happy to invite them to have a chat. I know Nick's very open to such conversations, like we said about the pharmacy. So if anyone knows somebody directly at Produce and Provide and they can put them in touch with us, that'd be great. And we'd be more than happy. We've shared their website and stuff in the past, I know, on our social media, but we'd be more than happy to connect up and see if there's a way to work more closely together. I don't know which ones you mean. Will it give go? Do you space out the plantings so they don't all grow together? So say I'm doing 2 or 3, yeah, I'll splodge them out. Yeah, give them a bit of space. You could stick one in, you know, it's whatever.
Catherine, I think what they meant was, do you space them out time-wise?
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. So you could go down the official route, do your first earlies, your second earlies, and your main crop. But I don't know if Mark might tell me off for doing this, but I literally grow potatoes at any time of the year, and they'll generally grow.
So
I'm
do
not
I.
overly concerned. Yeah, you put them in the ground, they tend to grow. If you start in the height of winter, you might struggle or something. But yeah, again, if you've got a greenhouse, stick them in the greenhouse in the bags, because you never know. And I had a very wise friend tell me once, and this is a guy who's been growing his whole life. He's worked in dairy his whole life. He doesn't actually speak to human beings. He just prefers to speak to cows. But he's fantastic. There wasn't anything he didn't know. And when I was getting my knickers in a twist, when I first started learning to grow, I would sit there and I'd watch them, and I'd come down every morning, and if they've grown a bit, it'll either grow or it won't. As he said, Catherine, leave it. It'll either grow or it won't. Actually, if you can take a little bit of a relaxed attitude towards it, you'll end up enjoying it more. Don't stress the cells out too much, because I get half of what I put in doesn't necessarily grow. I'm no expert. Mark's the expert. I'm no expert on this one, but I still can produce quite a lot of product. The London protest, we weren't directly involved in that in any way. To my understanding, the organisers, or some of the organisers of that, went out with kind of anti-Brexit mentality. We don't do politics. We're very much focused on supporting the farmers. I say we don't do politics. I mean, DEFRA, I guess you could say that was political. But outside of that, we don't generally get involved with politics. If the farmers go out, it's because we're supporting them to talk about supermarkets, talk about DEFRA, really want to bring an end to what DEFRA are doing. You know, if you're going to go out, go hard. That's kind of how we feel about it, but we're not directly involved with any of this. We're very much focused on solutions. That's what we look at. That's how we work. There's a lot of people looking at that side of things on the protest. Not to say we wouldn't support farmers protesting, more that our focus is on providing solutions and forming solutions and moving forward. What comes next? What comes next? So we keep looking at that stuff. Oh, fantastic. So there's a lovely message here from Terry. I work at a farm shop in mid-Essex. We're all awake and we're interested in becoming a food hub. We already have a great community of healers and other awake individuals. That's fantastic news. How often should you water the potatoes? If I leave them outside, I don't tend to do it a lot unless it's super dry, personally. Again, Mark will probably tell me off in a minute. I don't tend to water them a great amount if they're outside, but if they're in the greenhouse, it really, you know, consider the weather and what it looks like, and just don't let them get dry, I guess. Go on, Mark, tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, we would water potatoes daily.
Do you?
That's how you get big potatoes.
Well, yeah. No, I think it's because of where I place them. But again, it's, you know, location where you are as well. Different places have different weather and all the rest of it.
I think what does need to be said, Catherine, is that, you know, in our current climate, you might not have to water them. You might have to drain them.
I got to laugh about it because the weather at this point is ridiculous. Right, let's have one more question. Let's have a look. So I've got one here. What feed do you give them and how often? Am I missing the end of something else there? Or is that about the spuds, Georgia? Hang on. Oh, hang on. Yes, spuds. Do you feed your spuds? I don't.
Catherine, what I would say, if people want to make a really easy feed for plants, right, get a bucket or, you know, a water a dustbin, something. Chuck all your old stinging nettles in it, and comfrey leaves, especially if you go around the countryside, you can find them quite easily, and soak them in water. You'll end up with a real stinky brown water. Dilute that down, water your plants with it. It's a beautiful liquid nitrogen. When I was a kid, Grandad used to make thousands and thousands of gallons of that to work around the farm. They never used to use any petro fertilizers at all. They made all their fertilizers: stinging nettles, comfrey weed, and water. That's all you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is stinky but incredibly effective. I had a friend who did his in a bath, just brewed it in a bath.
Yeah,
actually do. So someone's asking about information about approaching councils. What I'd say is if we could hold off on that one, because we'll be doing a dedicated Zoom for that, and it's quite in depth. So it'd be good to do that all in the same time. I'm just checking. I've covered everything off. So Sue, I have a local butcher who is struggling to keep his shop going. Would it be an idea to help these people? Could you suggest a group to help him? I mean, in all honesty, I would be working on behalf of that butcher if it was me, to go out, get on Facebook, spread the word, offer to deliver, put a group of people together to help that butcher, have a chat with him. Is there anything we can do to help? Could we volunteer some time? I would suggest that is the way forward, because all of these guys need help. We can't split ourselves in that many pieces, which is why we rely on you guys in the community to be able to do a lot of this and reach out to them. Maybe you could say, well, would you like to supply the local school or a business park or something whereby you could maybe go and speak to those people on their behalf, but have a chat with your butcher, see what it is that they need and see if you could help them. I think,
Catherine, one of the things I have seen somebody did, we did it for our butcher personally on a 3-day turnaround. So we took, over the course of 3 days, we took 3 of his products. So we took some pig products, some cow products, and some lamb products, and we just featured them in a 1-minute video, which we put all out over social media locally. We shared it on every Facebook page there was locally, just advertising the fact, and he got loads of business out of it. The people hold the power. The power sits in the hands of the people here, and cannot emphasize the people enough. If you really, really want to, you know, you've been on here, you've watched us, you've heard what we've got to say, you really want to make a difference, stop giving your money to the supermarkets. That's the biggest thing you can do. Stop paying the supermarkets for selling you trash. Go and spend your money with someone who is going to spend that money in the local community, not buy another yacht for another director. take your money, take your power, take it away from the supermarkets and the supply chains, go and spend it elsewhere, and see how you can assist small growers, small farmers, small producers, small village shops. You know, I've been especially promoting our village shops, and from a wholesale side, I did a video the day of what's available at the moment through English farms, and then where they could buy that. And that's been really well received. The shops are getting more business out of it. Their sales have almost doubled now in the last 3 months. I've got a bit of a following now, but nothing massive. You know, there's people out there got, 500 people on their Facebook or their Twitter or whatever the heck, X, whatever it is now, Snapchat. There's all these different platforms. Take some pictures, take some videos of the products, what your suppliers, the people who you want to support, and get that on social media. Get it out there and get involved in, helping them keep their businesses afloat. Pull the supermarket chain, supply chain down. Simple as that.
Fantastic. Guys, one last request, if I may. We obviously are completely volunteer based, so we don't have funding per se at this moment in time. We don't source government funding at this moment or anything like that at all. However, we've got some really strong ideas as well for things that we want to raise funds for. We want to be able to get to a stage where we've got a kitty to help local food hubs open. We want to get to the stage where we could regionally stockpile certain equipment or gear that farmers or new farmers or small community groups might then be able to borrow to save them having a huge outlay. We've got agricultural engineers on hand who are prepared to work with some equipment if we can get our hands on it and so forth. But there are so many things that we need to invest in to help expand this community level infrastructure to make this happen for farmers and to get this moving. Don't get me wrong, there's lots we can do anyway. Let's just get on with what we can do. But if you are able to share out our donation page, encourage others to, if they could make a donation, it'd be really fantastic, because every penny is going to go into getting this infrastructure into place. And we'd love, like I say, to be in a stage where we've got enough money that we could give a certain element of money to every single food hub group that wants to open up. We've got to move forward anyway. Even without the funding, we've got to keep moving forward, but we could move a lot quicker. So if you could share that donation button out there, if you know anybody who wants to just hand over lots of money to a group, then please do let them. We're completely above board. We can share that. Thank you. Someone's put the donate information into the chat. So please do have a look at that if you're able to. Guys, unless there's any other urgent questions, we are, yeah, absolutely, Kate. We'll be doing it on a monthly basis on the website. Yeah, if you are more than happy, guys, we're going to cut off for this evening. Let Mark go and get some rest before he's back into work in, what, 2 hours or something crazy? Yeah. So thank you all so much for your time this evening. Thank you for coming along. This will go out with the presentation attached, so you guys can share that with anybody that might be interested or who missed tonight. But we do encourage everyone to get involved. Any major issues, do email us, but again, a small team, so please be patient with us. And yeah, thank you. God bless. Let's grow a lot of food and get a bit of a people's army on the ground to make this happen. Have a good evening. Many thanks.
Feed the nation.
Feed the nation. I love it.